Now we're going to talk about some networking commands, just a few networking commands that I use quite a lot, and hopefully you find them useful and they're good tips to give you information about the network that you're connected to and perform network related functions. So the first one is Ifconfig. And as you can see here, it returns to us information about our network. And for instance, since we are connected via Wi-Fi, or at least I am, if you're connected via an Ethernet cable, you will see the information about the IP address that you're assigned. So as you can see here, it's 10.0.0.106 is my IP address. And again, if I hover over my connection here, I can see that 10.0.0.106. And it gives you some additional information about packets and so on, just details about your wireless connection or your Ethernet connection if you're connected via an Ethernet hardware. So as you can see here, my ETH0, there aren't any packets or errors or bytes that were transferred, so that means I'm not using my Ethernet port currently on the network, but if you were, you'd see some details there about the IP address you're assigned and so on. So Ifconfig, very handy command line utility to get information about your network. Another variant of this is IWconfig. So IWconfig will specifically return information about the wireless network that you're connected to. So here, as you can see, the SSID of the network that I'm connected to is called DJmakers. It gives you some information about the frequency and so on, and the signal strength, and what the access point is and so on. So that gives you, the IWconfig gives you more details about your wireless pertaining to the wireless network. Another handy utility is ping. So for those folks who are familiar with networking, ping allows us to check to see if a computer is up and running on our network. So typically you can type in ping and the IP address you want to check for. So in my case, I'm just going to do a ping on a particular IP address. This is actually a network attached storage on my network. So as you can see, I'm getting a response coming back from my ping, so I know it's up and running. It's a very quick and easy way to see if another device is up and running on your network. And I just can press Control-C here, and that allows me to stop that process. If I know the host name of a particular device on my network, I can also do a ping and that host name. Okay, and in the case of my Raspberry Pi, the host name is Raspberry Pi. I didn't change it. That's typically the default. So it's actually checking on my network, doing a DNS, resolving it, and showing, of course, that's 127.0.1.1 is home. That's a loopback address. So it's actually just saying that it can communicate with my Pi, which is what I'm running. But if there's any other host names on your network, you can do a ping, and that will check to see the availability if that particular device is up and running. So very handy utility for checking the availability of devices on your network. The last command that I want to demonstrate is the Wget command, and it's a command that I use frequently all the time. I thought it would be a good tip and trick for you to familiarize yourself with. And essentially it just allows us to download a file from the internet via the command line. Sometimes when you're installing packages and other stuff from the command line, it's an easy way of pulling something down from the terminal. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open up here my file manager and go into downloads. And as you can see, I have a couple of images here in my downloads folder. But let's get another image to download from the internet. So I'm going to open up a browser here, the Chromium browser on Raspbian, and going to go to images.google.com, and let's search here for Raspberry Pi as an example. And let's see, this first image here of the hand holding the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to click on that. Let's say we want to download that image. If I view the image, it should show me this is how I can get to the image where it's stored from the, actually this is from the raspberrypi.org website. So I'm going to copy this URL and let's go back to the terminal. And to get that file, I'm going to type in, as you see, we're in the downloads folder. If I do an ls, those are the two files that are in there. But if I do a wget and I paste in that URL, okay, that is for that image of a person holding the Raspberry Pi, and I tap on enter, as you can see, it went out to the internet, it downloaded that image, and now that image, which is called home dash, it's a long name, should be in my downloads folder. So if I do an ls, oh, there I see it. So that was downloaded. And if I go back to my file system, here it is. So here's the image. Let me double click on it. And there it is. So that's how I was able to retrieve that file from the internet using wget. And from a networking perspective, this is a very handy, easy to use command that would allow you to retrieve content from the internet and download it to your Raspberry Pi.